Voilà.
Wenn du mehr als 10.000 Euro auf einem Bankkonto hast und nicht willst, dass das Geld bald in Flammen aufgeht, solltest du jetzt sehr gut zuhören und handeln. Die EZB lässt ihre Gelddruckmaschine aktuell auf Hochtouren laufen, was in kurzer Zeit zu einer massiven Inflation führen kann und wird. Das heißt für dich übersetzt, Kohle weg. Ich wiederhole, dein Geld ist weg oder teilweise nichts mehr wert. Mein Name ist Thorsten Wittmann und ich habe ein exklusives Geldtraining vorbereitet, in dem wir genau unter die Lupe nehmen, warum Währungsreform, Inflation ein ganz normaler Reinigungsprozess der Wirtschaft sind und wie du dich davor schützen kannst. Klicke jetzt auf den Button.
Hey friends, it's Alicia from Piano TV. I hope you're well. Today I wanted to chat with you guys about sight reading. I feel very passionately about sight reading, so I just wanted to basically dedicate this video to giving you a few suggestions to get better at sight reading. And I also wanted to talk about why being able to read sheet music is super, super, super important. And something that I noticed that a lot of my adult students and people that I've heard from and talked to struggle with. And I also wanted to mention that I have a beginner's course that's open for a few more days. It's going to be closing on March 30th. And for the people who sign up early, you are able to hop on a 2-hour workshop, deep dive, where we really get into reading notation, starting from basically the ground up. So we start from complete scratch, assuming you know nothing about notation, and then we actually dive really deep, and we get pretty far along with reading music. So it's going to be a really intense theory workshop. It is free for the first, for like the early signups of the beginner course. So if this is something you're interested in, it's got like, I'm going to be doing worksheets with you. We're going to have like a nice group of 50 people kind of all together going through this workshop, which is something I've never taught before, and I'm really excited about it. So definitely check that out. I'll leave the link below. So the reason that I feel so passionately about sight reading and why it's such a crucial skill to learn when you're learning the piano is because ultimately, if you learn by ear, it can be a benefit in the early stages, but a little bit of a downside later on. If you're learning by ear and so this basically means maybe you're listening to YouTube recordings and you're kind of playing things just based on what it sounds like. Maybe you're following chords, you're learning how to play chords. You're learning from programs that don't really show you sheet music, they just show you what keys to press on the piano. This is good if you want to sound pretty good at playing the piano really fast. So anyone can learn a few chords by ear and play some simple pop music just like totally by ear without having to figure out how to read music well at all. But your progress is going to be limited because even though you can be in a position where you sound pretty good, like within the first month or two of playing, you're not going to find as much growth happening later in your piano journey. It's sort of like if you think about this as being able to read books, like you think about if you went to college and you only were able to receive the information from the prof, from listening to lectures or watching lecture videos, but you couldn't actually read your textbook. That's kind of what it is. So you can get a lot of good information from, listening to a prof talk, but ultimately you also want to be able to study yourself. You want to be able to get inside the information, linger on it, and be able to read confidently. So this is really important because if you ever want to be able to play music that's at like more than an intermediate level. So if you ever want to be able to learn Chopin or Franz Liszt or Beethoven, anything like that, you need to know how to read music because you can't learn. I mean, to my knowledge, I don't know anyone who's learned how to play like a Liszt piece by ear. It's just too complicated. It's too detailed. There's too many nuances to pick out all the individual sounds, unless you are just like a savant, basically. So what I recommend is, even if you, I guess the only type of person who wouldn't really, like, it wouldn't really matter if you learned how to sight read, would be the kind of person who simply wants to improvise. So someone who, because there are amazing improvisation players. So there's people like for many years, like I think Oscar Peterson, like a bunch of others. I can't remember him specifically. I think he could actually read music, so maybe I'm mixing this up. But there have been famous improvisers over the years who can play incredibly complex music on the piano because they've learned how to improvise, and they don't need to read sheet music. So it's not something that every single person needs to do. But I would say that probably 9 out of 10 people who are learning the piano should probably put a lot of their time and energy into learning how to read sheet music, just because it's going to allow you to grow with your music and get you so that you're able to comprehend and digest music of increasing complexity as you continue your journey, because your ear is going to just limit you. At some point or other, you're going to kind of hit a wall. In the first year of learning the piano, there are different schools of thought on this. So there's some people who teach purely by ear in the first couple of years, and I think that's fine. I think that's an approach that works for some people. But what I've noticed that has the best results when I've taught is by really going hard on sight reading in the first year, especially by really dedicating yourself to just getting a grip on how to read music quite well, even if it's simple music, because of course we have to start somewhere. So if you have any takeaway from this video, the main thing that I want you to do, this is so easy, and it's, despite the fact that it's so easy, so many of my students just put it off or forget about it or resist it or not prioritize it highly. But it's very simple. Practice sight reading for 5 minutes a day. That's it. Every day, 5 minutes. I'm going to give you a couple pieces of advice for this. So I have some books. Say you were to pick up a book like Bartok's Microcosmos #1, which I've talked about on this channel before. If you say, okay, I'm going to sit down and sight read one of his exercises every day, or half. The first thing I would recommend, don't sight read more than 4 to 8 measures a day. Like, especially if you're a beginner, keep it simple, keep it small. If you are doing Bartok's first exercise, it's only 8 measures. So you basically, I would even set a timer, because you don't want to go over 5 minutes really, because it's not about practicing the piece. It's not about getting really, really good at it. It's about trying to read something as best as you can in 5 minutes. And then when the 5 minutes is over, you put it away and you stop practicing. So if I were to do this, I would spend 5 minutes reading basically the entire first exercise that Bartok has in his music. I would pay attention to the notes. I would play slowly. I would try to notice any details like the phrasing. I do my best, even if I didn't end up getting a very good sound, like even if it wasn't working pretty well after 5 minutes, that's okay. The point with sight reading isn't to get really good at something. It's to just expose yourself to music and practice reading something new every day. So what is not sight reading, and this is the reason I think a lot of people don't develop good sight reading skills, is if you pick up a complicated piece, like even the Chopin waltz that I teach in my free course, it can be complicated for some people. So you pick that up and then you work on it for 2 months. And what happens is, maybe in the early days when you're playing that, you're sight reading like for a few days, but at some point you already kind of know the notes. And there comes a point when you're not really reading the notes anymore. You're just sort of looking at them on the page as a reference point for where you are, because your fingers kind of already know what to do. After you've practiced a piece a certain amount of time, rote playing takes over. So your mechanical movements, like the way your hands move, you're just going to start to know where your hands go. You're not going to have to think about actively reading each individual note after a certain point. So usually, even within a few days of picking up a new piece. So what I see happen a lot is that people will learn a really complex piece of music and spend months on it. And that doesn't allow you to practice sight reading very much, because you might practice it for a few days, but then at some point you're just trying to repeat the pattern over and over and get faster and get better at the finger pattern. You're not really reading. You're not training yourself to continually read. It's that daily exposure to new music, just that constantly picking up of something brand new and then putting it away, and then the next day picking up something else that's brand new, that's going to allow you to just practice sight reading better and get better at sight reading. So when you pick up a new piece of music, you could count that first day, maybe the first 2 days as sight reading, but after that point, you really want to just be exposing yourself to new music. So that's why I recommend all my students, especially beginners, 5 minutes a day, practice reading something, just one line, just 4 to 8 bars.
Weihnachten liegt nun ein paar Tage zurück und schon steht das nächste Fest vor der Tür, Silvester. Und das bedeutet für viele einen geselligen Abend mit Freunden, Fondue oder Raclette, Bleigießen und um 12 Uhr mit Sekt auf das neue Jahr anstoßen. Zumindest feiern wir in Deutschland so häufig den Jahreswechsel. In anderen Ländern gibt es hier ganz andere Traditionen. Welche ist...
And here are some, I have a few books. I mean, there's a lot of resources you could use for sight reading. I know that there's apps and stuff online. I haven't explored those, but for those of you who are more tech savvy, that could be something you look into. Some classic sight reading books that I've used for people in their first year of piano, of course, Bartók's Microcosmos 1. You can also get this for free. So this is an old enough book that if you go to imslp.org, you can just download it. There's 36 pieces. They actually get kind of complicated by the end. So for the average beginner, maybe like the first 20 exercises, that would be okay. You have to have a little bit of sight reading know-how. Like you kind of have to know the basics before you start a book like this. Another book that I like, and this one is not available for free. I have two by Walter Carroll. I have Scenes at a Farm, which is a little harder, and then The Countryside. I think I got that backwards. Scenes at a Farm. This is the easier one. This is like his first lesson book. And they're pretty straightforward. I mean, some of them get more complex, but again, if you do 4 to 8 measures a day, this could keep you busy for like easily a couple months if you're doing 5 minutes a day of piano. Slightly more complicated version, Walter Carroll's The Countryside. I really like sight reading actual pieces of music or actual collections, because not only do you get practice reading sheet music, but you also get an understanding of compositions and famous composers and stuff like that, which is kind of nice. Czerny's got some good collections for beginners, but his also increase in complexity pretty fast. The first, I don't know, maybe 10 exercises at Czerny's first instructions in piano playing, 100 recreations. These are pretty challenging, but again, you could just do 4-bar sections and sight read those 5 minutes a day. Not the whole book. I'd probably say like the first 15 maybe would be doable for someone who's been playing for the first year. If you've been playing a while, of course, you could go further into a book like that. And then I also like referencing Bayer's elementary piano method, Opus 101, which again, this one basically starts from scratch. It's kind of like a piano method book that was written a long time ago, but it does really ramp up in complexity. Still, again, working in 4 to 8 bar sections, this is doable for a lot of beginners. So what I've done in my piano beginner course that some people are signing up for and joining for this next run, where we're going to go through the 21 lessons I've created together. What I've done in that course is I've actually picked out 5 sight reading exercises to do each week. So I kind of wanted to take the guesswork. I didn't want to make my students go on a wild goose chase to find themselves sight reading. I wanted to remove as much resistance as possible for the beginners who are learning how to play when it comes to sight reading. Because if I made my students go hunt down their own sight reading exercises, I know it wouldn't happen. So you have to be pretty motivated. I would recommend those of you who are self-studying, like really, really, really do this. It's going to make a massive difference, just like 5 minutes a day. But I did try to remove the resistance in the course that I created by basically picking out the excerpts myself. Sometimes I've even written the excerpts because I like making them progressive and appropriate to whatever lesson materials that we are working on. Anyway, that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm looking forward to sharing more videos and free content as we carry on. And of course, if you are interested in learning how to sight read, the sight reading workshop for people who are joining the beginner course and the beginner course itself, definitely check it out. There's a time limit on it because I like starting everyone as a group together. So you will want to join before March 30th. So I encourage you to check that out soon. And join us if this is something you're interested in. Anyway, I'll catch up with you guys later.
Если у мамы много интересов, подарите Яндекс.Модуль, ставьте его в телевизор и подключите к Wi-Fi, и он хоть фильмы про орнитологию найдет.
Алиса, включи мультики.
Хоть мультики включи. Яндекс.Модуль. Всем интересный подарок.
Горькая пока она горькая. Вкуснее, вкуснее. Вот это и был самый вкусный. Могла мне помочь. Так не бывает, оно все и думает так дружно. Вот это идея. Да, Вау. Да, спасибо мне, кстати, спасибо. Надо брать. Все. Бывает. Боковые некуда уже.